both on a social and economic objective. One of the other trends we're seeing is where businesses are aligning with their social and environmental impact in addition to their, of course, financial impact as being one and the same in terms of stakeholder returns. So that, I think, is a positive trend we have to nurture.
I'm Melissa Bell in Kyiv, and this is CNN.
An artillery duel has been raging for days, torching around the vital Russian-held town of Izum.
As strikes rain down on the Donbass region, Russian forces ramp up their pounding of Ukrainian territory, leaving ashes behind. Plus,
he walked in unobstructed initially. So from the grandmother's house to the bar ditch to the school, into the school, he was not confronted by anybody.
anger from the parents of the children murdered in a Texas school. Why did law enforcement not act sooner? And
Jaden Perez is better today.
Still sad about some of my friends that died.
this 10-year-old saw things no child should see, and now he is afraid of going back to school. And he misses the classmates who are now gone forever. It's 3 p.m. in London. I'm Becky Anderson. Hello and welcome to Connect the World. We'll have all the latest developments on the school shooting in Texas later in this newscast. But we begin the increasingly dire situation in Donbass, where Ukraine's president says Russia's military aims to burn key cities to ashes as it forces advance. One of those cities is the strategic hub of Severodonetsk, where more fierce battles are reported today. You can see on this map its location on the edge of Russian-controlled territory, shown in red. A bit to the east, reports surfaced today that the city of Lyman, site of a key railway hub, has fallen to Russian-backed separatists. That has not been confirmed. If true, though, it would clear a path to Sloviansk and then further into the Ukrainian-controlled parts of Donetsk. All part of Russia's focus on capturing more territory as its forces make what Britain's Prime Minister calls slow but palpable progress in their drive to take full control of the Donbass. President Volodymyr Zelensky again accusing Russia of scorched earth tactics to achieve its goals.
In cities and communities closer to the Russian border, in Donetsk, in Luhansk, they gather everyone they can to fill the place of those killed and wounded in the occupation contingent. All this, including the deportation of our people and the mass killings of civilians, is an obvious policy of genocide pursued by Russia.
Well, Russian forces now occupying Izum are using it as a base to launch attacks to the south. Nick Payton-Walsh reports on fierce fighting that has been going on for days now around that city.
Putin would leave little of what he claims to liberate. An artillery duel has been raging for days, torching around the vital Russian-held town of Izum. Up on high, in a position we were asked not to reveal, these Ukrainian troops, dug in and buoyant, have a clear view of the damage below, but also their enemy.
So the Russians are just a kilometre on the brow of this hill, in that direction.
This unit only here 2 days, but say they have already destroyed a Russian tank. Yes, they play to the cameras, but it's pretty clear up here their morale is sky high.
Где мой бронированный Хаммер?
They are exposed, but ready, keen to show off, actually gleeful at, the international menu of weapons they've been sent. Almost a silly amount. These Swedish anti-tank munitions. And of course, a British NLAW. Then, from out of the grass, a German one, which they particularly like. A Polish grenade. No training on them, just practical use, they joke, giving them the widest experience of anti-tank weapons in Europe. Parading also what the Russians left, thermal optics, and a Soviet-era anti-tank weapon that they wind up like a telephone. Yet still, the Russians persist, even as the prisoners these troops have taken have revealed how young the soldiers they're fighting are.
Они дети, которые выросли при власти Путина. Никакой другой власти они не знают, не понимают. Путин сказал, он не может нас обманывать, вот мы все делаем правильно. Ну, в общем, как зомби. Как будто им прошили, прошивку какую-то вставили в мозг. И они вот какими-то заученными фразами все разговаривают. В общем, бедные, несчастные. Жалко на них смотреть.
In the village below, the endless shelling is flushing the remaining life out. This woman said telling me her name would make no difference.
Ту ніч били в мене кругом хати 11 ям взривів. 11! Ось проїду туди і посчитай. Сиділа в погребі і впала на коліна і молила Господа, щоб вложив людям у мозги добро. Видержуть мозги. А видержують, бачите?
They really don't know where they'll go or what, if anything, they can come back to. Just that life has no space left here. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, near Izium, Ukraine.
This is Amal Vo across what is going on today in Ukraine. She's live from Lviv in western Ukraine, and we are seeing a major offensive in that Donbas region, with Ukrainian officials admitting that they are outmanned and they are outgunned. What do we know about the Russian advances?
Well, Becky, we do know, according to the Ukrainian military, in a rare admission, that in the Donetsk region, that they have lost some territory there. There has been fierce fighting for days and for weeks there, but they now say that the Russians have captured a district that is just 10 miles away from a key resupply position for the Ukrainian military. And that position is very important to them because that allows them to get fresh troops as well as equipment, but it's also a humanitarian corridor. It allows for residents to leave, to escape, for food to come in. The Russians desperately want to get that resupply location, and they are getting much, much closer. We have been told that the Russians' advantage to Ukrainians when it comes to personnel is 8-1. And you take a look at the equipment, it is actually twice as much. They say that the heavy artillery, the tanks, the rockets, the missiles, all of that has been directed, particularly to the city of Severodonetsk, is making an impact here. And we're talking about, as you know, Becky, a city, a town that was essentially more than 100,000 people, now reduced to 15,000, hiding in basements and bomb shelters. We have learned today that there is an active hotspot location at the Mir Hotel in that area. That is where they say that Russian troops stormed the hotel. Ukrainian forces are trying to get them out. That is an active situation there, but the battles continue on the streets as well as hitting those civilian targets. So we are talking about civilian deaths, casualties for people who lost their lives yesterday, 11 buildings destroyed in that Severodonetsk area. This is a fierce, fierce fight, and it is one, Becky, that Ukrainian military say is they are up against really and perhaps at a disadvantage at this point.
Yeah, meantime in Kharkiv, and that, I remember Sam Kiley reporting from there ahead of February the 24th. This was a bustling city of more than 1 million people. Today we are seeing that targeted yet again, the targeting of residential areas. How confident are Ukrainian forces that they can hold that city of Kharkiv?
Well, Becky, at least they describe a sense of greater confidence, I suppose, in trying to hold that city. They know that it is a very important target for the Russians, so they say they have not made progress in terms of taking that key city. But if you just take a look around in the Kharkiv region itself, it is punishing to those who live there in that area. We were told, Becky, of just a tragic situation that occurred yesterday as this residential community was pummeled just outside of the city. 9 people who died, and one of them a family simply walking in the street, a husband and a wife, the husband, the father carrying a 5-month-old baby, both of them struck and killed immediately. The wife taken to a hospital severely wounded, 19 others also wounded. And so they are just taking hit after hit. The Ukrainian forces, however, trying to reassure the people that that city, that key city, is still holding, Becky.
Suzanne Malveaux is on the ground for you. Well, the Biden administration is preparing to send more help to Ukraine, this time advanced long-range rocket systems. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading in recent weeks for the multiple launch rocket system. The US-made weapons can fire a barrage of rockets hundreds of kilometers, and Ukraine believes these could be a game changer in its war with Russia. Let's bring in CNN's Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, according to your sources, just how effective will or could these weapons be at curbing Russia's offensive? And are they the game changer that the Ukrainian president is so desperate for at this point?
Well, according to the people that we've spoken to, and that includes lawmakers who have been pushing for this as well for weeks, they really could be a significant tool to push back the Russians decisively. That is not only what the Ukrainians are saying, but it seems to be a consensus here as well. And that is because of that extremely long range that they have. They can fire up to 186 miles. Now compare that to the artillery that the Ukrainians currently have. The maximum reach that they have currently is about 18 miles, right? So this would be a very significant ratcheting up of their capabilities there against the Russians. It also, though, because of that, has raised significant concerns within the Biden administration about the possibility that sending these systems over could be viewed as highly provocative to Russia because of the possibility that Ukraine could actually launch cross-border attacks into Russia using these systems, which again are very powerful and have a very long range. But the Ukrainians now are saying, look, we cannot afford any more wavering by the Biden administration, by the U.S. on this topic. We really don't have any time here, and we cannot push the Russians out decisively unless we have these systems. Take a listen to what the Ukrainian foreign minister said yesterday.
We need heavy weapons. The only position where Russia is better than us, it's the amount of heavy weapons they have. Without artillery, without multiple launch rocket systems, we won't be able to push them back.
So, Becky, the Russian conventional artillery can fire about 50 kilometers, and that is what the administration here and sources we've speak to say could result in these rocket systems having a very significant impact on Ukraine's ability to fight this war against Russia because of the ability of the Ukrainians to potentially defend cities against Russian artillery, which is, of course, would not be as significant as what the Ukrainians would get if they got these MLRS systems, Becky.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you, Natasha. Well, as this war rages on, we've heard many accusations that Russia is committing genocide against the Ukrainian people, not least by the country's president and indeed by the United States' President Joe Biden. But for the first time, an independent group of legal analysts says the Russian state is inciting genocide in Ukraine and is intending to, and I quote here, destroy the Ukrainian people. The report was put together by a US-based think tank and a Canadian human rights organisations, and it's signed by more than 30 scholars. Earlier, contributor Emily Prey explained their findings.
There exists a serious risk of genocide in Ukraine. As you said, Russia bears state responsibility for breaches of the Genocide Convention, for incitement to genocide, and all of this ties together to trigger the duty to prevent under international law.
And we will be exploring this a lot more in detail next hour with one of its contributors, Ewelina Otchab. Do stay with us for that. How did an armed teenager walk into an unlocked elementary school and stay nearly an hour carrying out the deadliest US school shooting in almost a decade? New questions emerging about how the police handled the massacre in Uvalde in Texas. Plus, 10 years on the front lines of the attack and hiding for his life, a survivor shares his terrifying story of the shooting that claimed the lives of so many classmates.
Quest's World of Wonder, in association with Turkish Airlines.
Listen, this is the sound of enchantment being made. In this village in western Turkey, these artists are making Nazar, the talisman that wards off the evil eye. It's a tradition that's thousands of years old. Mahmut Sür is a grand master of this art. He's a UNESCO living human treasure, and he's teaching me how to make one.
The moment it gains power is when it starts to turn blue. Blue is a powerful color.
It all seems a bit spooky. But then again, it's been around for thousands of years, and millions of people do believe in it. So, who am I to take the risk?
Inside Africa, in association with Zenith Bank.
Growing up, even going to the beach after prom, my parents were like, don't go in the water. And once I started connecting with surfers and actually visiting Liberia as an adult, I was like, wow, there are a lot of stories that aren't told. This Too Is Liberia is the title of the feature documentary that I'm creating. One of my biggest goals for the film was to make sure that everyone in the country sees the film, because I want the film to empower Liberians first, but I also want it to be home. Home is the priority for this.
With the Scrap Roberts Port as a paradise, you know, a place where you can come and enjoy your stay, a quiet area where the beaches are clean. We got a nice wave. The people in the community are welcoming. There is a self spirit among us, you know.
Law enforcement did not confront the gunman who slaughtered 19 children and 2 teachers before he entered an Uvalde, Texas elementary school. That key detail from public safety officials contradicting what we were told earlier about the timeline of the shooting and raising even more questions about the police response. We are expecting an update from authorities in about 90 minutes from now. Meanwhile, we are learning at least 7 officers rushed into the school within 4 minutes of the shooter's arrival, but it's still not clear why it then took nearly an hour to breach the classroom where the 18-year-old shooter had barricaded himself in. Parents understandably frustrated and very angry. Emotional new video shows them gathering outside the school while the attack was unfolding. Some were screaming at police to storm the building and save their kids. Meanwhile, the gunman's own mother speaking out for the first time and pleading for forgiveness.
I have no words. I have no words to say. I don't know what he was thinking. He had his reasons for doing what he did, and please don't judge him. I only want the innocent children who died to forgive me.
What do you tell their families?
Forgive me. Forgive my son. I know he had his reasons.
What reasons could he have had?
To get closer to those children, instead of paying attention to the other bad things. I have no words. I don't know.
CNN crime and justice correspondent Shimon Prokopets is on the scene in Uvalde in Texas, where investigators are still working, Shimon, to piece together a timeline of this massacre. What do we know at this point?
So we have a general timeline that, we've been asking for this timeline from authorities, really, for the last several days. They finally gave us some of it, and they list for us when the shooter, the gunman, first came to the scene, how long it took him to get inside the classroom. There are 2 key things. In the beginning, when all of this was going on, there's a 12-minute gap between 11:28 and 11:40 where he's outside the school shooting. He's using this rifle and he's shooting at some people. And then about 4 minutes after that, he's already inside the school through an open back door. Police get here, they confront him inside the school. There's an exchange of gunshots. And then he goes down the hallway and barricades himself inside this classroom where he kills all of these children and the teachers. And then he's in there for an hour. And we are not clear on what police were doing to get inside and stop him during that hour. They have not responded to any of the questions. Yesterday, that was the big question that I posed to the police here on why it is that it took an hour to get inside this classroom. Take a listen. Can you explain to us how he was barricaded and why you guys cannot breach that door?
So I have taken all your questions into consideration. We will be doing updates. We will be doing updates to answer those questions. You should be able to answer that question now, sir. What is your name?
Shimon Prokopets from
Shimon,
CNN.
I hear you.
Because we've been given a lot of bad information, so why don't you clear all of this up now and explain to us how it is that your officers who are in there for an hour, yes, rescuing people, but yet no one was able to get inside that room.
Shimon, we will circle back with you.
And hopefully that happens today. Like you said, in about 90 minutes or so, the police say they're going to come here and they're going to talk to us again. And quite honestly, if it's just going to be where they're taking 5 questions and then they're just going to end the press conference again, that's not going to be sufficient. So hopefully they'll take more questions. The key here is what was going on in that hour. The information that the police have initially provided turned out to be bad. They said that there was a resource officer, a police officer on scene that engaged the gunman. There was a confrontation. That never happened. We learned that there was no resource officer, a school officer that was on scene. Why that bad information was put out, we don't have clarification on that, but that is certainly something that I hope to be able to ask the police today. And of course, that 1 hour, we still don't know why the police did not go inside that classroom. We're hearing stories from kids who are inside that classroom, survivors, those moments of what it was like. They were hoping, they were really just hoping, they were wondering where were the police, as were all the parents, as you know, who are outside the school saying, why aren't the police going in? We're gonna go in ourselves and try to rescue our kids. So hopefully later today, we'll get some answers.
Yeah, 90 minutes from now is what is promised. Shimon, stay on the story for us. Thank you. Well, US President Joe Biden, the First Lady, will visit Uvalde on Sunday to try to comfort families who lost loved ones and to speak to community leaders there. As Shimon says, for many of the young survivors, the experience has left them shaken and scarred. Adrian Broder spoke to one 4th grader forced to watch several of his friends die as he hid from the gunman.
Jaden Perez is better today.
Still sad about some of my friends that died.
And the 10-year-old shooting survivor says talking helps.
It was very terrifying because I never thought that was going to happen.
Inside a 4th grade classroom, the 10-year-old said he and his classmates hid near the backpacks. This photo of the classroom was taken long before the shooting.
5 of us hiding there and then the rest under a table. But that didn't stop one of my friends getting hurt. The shooter shot through the window and hurting my friend and my teacher. Like my teacher got hurt on what, I don't know which side, but she got hit on the side. And then my friend got shot through the nose. And they both had to get surgery.
Perez said an officer helped him and his classmates escape through a window, but not before the shooter had killed his friends.
McKenna, Tess, Annabelle, basically almost some of them, basically almost all of them.
Jaden's pain, not physical, but emotionally paralyzing.
No, because after what happened, no.
Do you ever want to go back to school?
I don't want to know what, because I don't want anything to do with another shooting and me in the school.
You scared it might happen again?
Mm-hmm. And I know it might happen again, probably.
Jaden's mom, Crystal, shared these pictures taken about 90 minutes before the shooting. She's with her son at the school, celebrating Jaden's honor roll achievement. His mom said waiting, not knowing, was tough.
What did you tell your mom when you finally saw her?
I left my water bottle at school.
Your water bottle. Did you hug her?
Mm-hmm. Well, she hugged me first and she was like, "Ugh."
Was she so happy to see you?
Yes, and my dad and my grandma.
What do your parents mean to you?
A lot, because they brought me into this world.
A world where schools are also crime scenes.
Did you hear the gunfire?
Yes, you never know whenever you can lose someone close to you.
Well, an 11-year-old who was wounded in that school shooting wants the world to know what she lived through. But Maya Cirillo is so scared of men right now because of what happened that she only feels comfortable speaking with women. She agreed to speak to CNN producer Nora Noyce, but didn't want to go on camera. Here's Nora explaining what Mia told her to my colleague John Bowen.
Mia says it just happened all so fast. He backed the teacher into the classroom. And he made eye contact with the teacher again, looked her right in the eye and said, "Good night," and then shot her and killed her.
He said good night before he shot her.
Good night. And then it happened pretty fast after that as well. He started open firing in the classroom. He hit the other teacher, a lot of Mia's friends. At that point, Mia was hit by fragments of the bullets. You could even see them yesterday. I mean, on her back, on her shoulders, the back of her head.
More on this story, of course, at CNN.com. There's an awful lot of information there. You can use that to impact our world. Well, despite the shooting and the tragic loss of life, the National Rifle Association says it plans to move ahead with its scheduled convention this weekend. The powerful gun lobby meets today in the same state as the Uvalde school shooting. That's Texas, of course. Former President Donald Trump, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and Texas Senator Ted Cruz are scheduled to speak there. Just ahead, Russia's leader is talking about keeping his country's economy stable in the face of crushing sanctions. Is this a case of magical thinking on the part of Vladimir Putin? More on that after this.
The ever-changing weather around the world. Ever-diverse terrain and roads across the world. With Kumho Tire that has conquered all. There is no road you cannot go. Go with Kumho. Kumho Tire.
Afghan women are afraid that this is the beginning of your efforts to erase them from the workspace.
It's not clear. Even if we appear with the burqa, maybe they will say that women's voices are forbidden.
Did you ever imagine that you would be prevented from going to school?
Girls' education is fundamental to the dignity of Afghan life.
Do you believe that young girls will be allowed to go to school here in Afghanistan?
When you travel the world, make sure the world travels with you. Check in, log on, and get connected with all of the latest developments at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels. Connected to your world.
All new Inside Africa. Go inside the inventive minds, evolving places, and creative trends of the Africa you need to know now. A film academy designed to help young African creatives thrive.
There's a kind of free flow and a spirit out there that I think is very, very exciting.
Inside Africa on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank. This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
Welcome back. I'm Becky Anderson in London, just before 3:30 here. You're watching Connect the World. You are more than welcome wherever you are watching around the world. Remorseless Russian bombardments and outgunned Ukrainian fighters. We are now talking about eastern Ukraine, where officials are now voicing concern that Ukrainian troops are outmanned as the Kremlin intensifies its attacks there. Ukraine says Russian forces have made some modest gains and appear to be pushing towards the key city of Kramatorsk. At the same time, the British Prime Minister warning that Russian President Vladimir Putin is making what he calls slow but palpable progress in the Donbass region. That has got Boris Johnson calling for multiple launch rocket systems to be given to Ukraine. As Moscow fights for control of the east of that country, President Vladimir Putin is talking about stabilizing his own economy. He says his government is tackling Western sanctions imposed on Moscow and is working on increasing access to finance. The Russian leader addressed the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council, as it is known, a short time ago via remote. CNN's international diplomatic editor Nick Robertson is here with me in the studio remotely, and we haven't seen Vladimir Putin leave the country now, certainly since before this war began. Is this wishful thinking when he is addressing, explain who this grouping is, and when he's talking about stabilising and improving the Russian economy at this point?
Yeah, what he's trying to do here, I think, is create a narrative and context at home that we are still part of an international group of nations. And this particular group of nations, most of them former Soviet states, Belarus, the Kyrgyzstan were the hosts, if you will, the virtual hosts, Kazakhstan. Interesting, because they've sort of distanced themselves a little bit from President Putin and this war in Ukraine. It was interesting listening to the other leaders leading up to President Putin, because they were saying this Eurasia economic group that we are, we need to do more. We need to build more roads. We need to have greater digital connections. We need to do all these things. We need to do them faster. And Putin's narrative was, isn't it great? We're doing really well. This is good. There's more to do. But look at how much our trade's improved. GNP for Russia up 4.7, I think he said, for the whole grouping as a whole, 4.6. So it was very Putin-esque. Everything's wonderful, we're doing well together. But I think it's, again, for that projection of an image. And he talked about the free trade agreements that they're doing right now with Iran, not a major economy, one that he hopes to do with the UAE. Maybe that could be beneficial. With Indonesia, yes, that could be big as well. And with Egypt, something coming to conclusion, they're not so big. It's the portrayal as a sort of business as usual. Our economy is good, and let's all stay strong.
Because it's not business as usual, let's be quite frank. On the ground, though, it does seem as if the Russians are making some gains, and it's got Ukrainian officials concerned, and it has the international community, or at least America and its allies, wondering just how this all ends at this point. And we are beginning to see, if not fissures, at least cracks in the narrative about what a victory will, or and a victory to whom, we might ask, would look like.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning of the war. What Zelensky was saying and what everyone backing Zelensky was saying for the first couple of months at least, peace negotiations with Russia looked like Russia withdrawing to the pre-war positions, the 23rd of February positions. Now Zelensky is very clearly saying, no, we're going to push Russia back off the 2014 incursions and annexation of Crimea. The United States saying, yes, we want to have a weakened Putin. Yes, he shouldn't be able to do this anywhere and in Ukraine again. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz saying that Putin can't dictate the terms of peace. We have Boris Johnson today saying that, negotiating with Putin is a bit like working with a crocodile, is trying to bite your leg off at the same time. So no one's under any illusions about Putin. There is, though, a sort of a disconnect now. What does actual peace look like? And Zelensky is incredibly aware that he needs weapons from the West. But when it finally comes down to it, is the leverage over Zelensky beyond the weapons. Well, look, he wants to become a member. He wants Ukraine to become a member of the European Union. So, okay, can you put something on the table to induce Ukraine to give up some territory to get into the European Union faster? That's got good potential economic buy. But none of this is really is having a conversation, but it's there waiting to happen, because the winning narrative that Ukraine has had on the battlefield is now going to be eroded and replaced for a while by Russia making gains. And hence Boris Johnson saying, give Ukraine these rocket launching systems that will tackle the root of its problem, which is Russia has them and is using them to devastating effect. And that's going to be the problem going forward. It's like, how much do you keep ramping up to match what Russia is doing to hold Russia back and then push them back? It's a very beginning of a long conversation.
Yeah, and one that, that we are aware, both, let's be quite frank, that is being had behind closed doors at the moment, very, very quietly, as the New York Times happened to suggest today. I think Richard Quest was commenting on this sense at Davos this year, as people, and this was front and centre, as people considered what's going on in Ukraine, there was this sense of, will there be a war fatigue?
This is very much on the Ukrainians' minds. I was in Vienna a couple of weekends ago speaking with a Ukrainian oligarch, businessman, and he was very aware that this support, and he's very much engaged in, obviously, financially and in other means helping the Ukrainian government, but is very aware of this largesse that's coming from the international community right now isn't going to last, and that there are beneath the surface in Ukrainian politics, internal politics at play here.
Nick Robertson, it is always a pleasure. Good to have you on the set with me.
Thank you.
It was nice to be in London. Thank you. Well, from the war-ravaged city of Mariupol, CNN has received videos and spoken with people who live under Russian occupation there, and that's what it is. It is now Russian occupation. CNN's Melissa Bell has more on what the city has become.
After 3 months of war, with Azovstal, that symbol of Ukrainian resistance in ruins, Mariupol is a city of ghosts. These exclusive pictures obtained by CNN show the dead only now being retrieved from the rubble. At least 22,000 people are now believed to have died, according to the city mayor's office, now working in exile.
It's absolutely dark inside the city. Just lights by Russian troops, by Russian patrols, and everywhere is smell of death. And really, a smell of the fire, smell of the smoke, and smell of the death. It's Mariupol reality.
Very different to what's now being transmitted inside Mariupol. Russian TV channels, to go with the Russian passports residents here have already been issued with. 20-year-old Nicole is one of the lucky ones. She fled Mariupol with her 5-year-old nephew in early April. It took them 5 days to get to Ukrainian-held land on foot. She won't give their full names because her parents are still trying to get out. As she starts to tell us her story, Kirill, who had to be silent, she says, for the 5 days it took them to flee, says he wants to speak. He says it was very scary getting out, showing us how he had to hide his head from the shelling. His message now? I want everyone to stay alive, he says. To the west of Mariupol, the city of Kherson. The pictures now emerging, secretly filmed lines of residents waiting to buy oil and medicine. Tales of hardship shared also by those who fled the city since it fell to Russian forces on March 2nd. Those still inside, too scared to be identified. One man telling CNN of a protest 4 days ago at the main train station. When a Ukrainian flag was raised, he says anyone within a mile radius was arrested. In Mariupol, too, the images speak of the new reality of what lies beyond the reach of the free press, Russian-controlled Ukraine. Melissa Bell, CNN, Kyiv.
Let's get you up to speed on some of the other stories that are on our radar right now. And there are now 26 confirmed cases of monkeypox in Canada And health officials there say that number is likely to rise. Most of the people infected are in Quebec, with a single case in Ontario. Canada's Public Health Agency is offering a smallpox vaccine to areas requiring a targeted response. Dangerous and disappointing. That is what the US is calling China and Russia's veto of a new UN sanction on North Korea. Thursday's move comes after more than a dozen North Korean ballistic missile tests this year. The US ambassador to the UN says the veto could fuel Pyongyang's program to develop nuclear-capable missile systems. And Washington is said to be bolstering economic ties with Taiwan. Senior Taiwanese officials say a new round of economic talks is expected to get underway in a few weeks. This, as some experts are concerned, China is looking at Russia's invasion of Ukraine and learning lessons that it could apply in Taiwan. Ivan Watson has that story.
Russia and China enjoy a friendship with no limits. This announcement made by the Russian and Chinese presidents when they met on February 4th on the eve of the Beijing Winter Olympics. 20 days later, soon after the end of the Olympics, Moscow invaded Ukraine. Russia's unprovoked war sparking fears China could have similar plans for Taiwan. Beijing claims the self-governing island belongs to China. Asked if he would get involved militarily to defend Taiwan against China, the U.S. president had this explicit warning.
Yes.
You are.
That's a commitment we made.
Beijing has long called for peaceful reunification with Taiwan, but it has also never ruled out using force against Taiwan's democratically elected government. And when it comes to military force, China dwarfs Taiwan, boasting the largest navy in the world and the largest air force in the region. But if Russia's deadly adventure in Ukraine taught strategists anything, it's that size doesn't always matter.
The country may clearly have a conventional military advantage over an adversary, but that doesn't mean that it would necessarily achieve easy military or political victory.
The war in Ukraine highlights another potential challenge for China. To attack Ukraine, Russian troops simply drove across the border from Russia and from neighboring Belarus. But to reach Taiwan, Chinese forces would have to cross the Taiwan Strait, more than 100 miles, 180 kilometers of open water.
Well, amphibious assaults are the most difficult, complex operations in warfare. If the Chinese tried to send an invasion force from the mainland to Taiwan, they would have to contend with salvos of anti-ship missiles. And what we would see is a massacre of shipping, probably in the waters around Taiwan.
The Russian Navy has suffered major losses from suspected Ukrainian anti-ship missiles. First losing this landing ship in the Russian-occupied port of Berdyansk, and then losing the Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Analysts say Taiwan has a much larger arsenal of anti-ship missiles at its disposal, and its military has been training for 70 years against the threat of a Chinese invasion.
China is learning the lessons from Ukraine, both in a positive and also in the negative manner.
Early in his Ukraine war, Vladimir Putin publicly put Russia's nuclear weapons on alert, a thinly veiled threat to the West.
Probably that the China will bring in the kind of advantage of the nuclear threats in the early phase of the scenario. That will potentially, I think, change the calculation of the Washington, D.C.
As a warning to the U.S., China's foreign ministry declared this week that no force in the world can stop China from achieving reunification with Taiwan. Ivan Watson, CNN, Hong Kong.
Still ahead, remembering a young life ended too soon. Her name was Layla Salazar, and she was just 11 years old. Her family tells CNN she was their everything.
When you dream more, you need to move more. With over 45% of sub-Saharan Africa using mobile money, Innovative digital payment solutions are giving people financial freedom. Access FacePay uses AI to make transactions more secure and accessible for over 31 million customers. Access. More than banking.
Mainland China tolerates no signs of dissent whatsoever.
Are you anticipating dozens of people being prosecuted? Hundreds? Thousands?
Stories of mass internment camps have been trickling out.
Do you think you'll see your husband again?
This period of mourning is taking place in a real climate of fear. The humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in front of our eyes here.
This is one of the cells? Come on in here.
We're flying over ISIS front lines. This is the only protection we have. The nerves are still very much on edge. Firefighters have been battling this blaze for weeks. What do you say to people who question climate change?
We need to do something now.
Ivan Watson, CNN.
What's it like to be Barry Manilow?
He writes the songs that make the whole world sing.
Oh, look, a piano.
Oh, imagine that.
Fans love him.
You're one of my idols.
Critics, not always.
It wasn't just one critic, it was all of them.
Join me as I ask Barry Manilow about being famous.
There were a couple of years there that I was a brat.
Being inspired.
My proudest moment as a songwriter.
And being an icon for decades.
Being Barry Manilow, Tuesday on CNN.
Well, you're looking at images from Uvalde in Texas, where people are coming to a memorial to pay their respects to the kids and the teachers killed in what was the mass shooting at an elementary school there earlier this week. The gunman barged right through an unlocked back door to enter the school. A much different account than what police initially reported. They originally said the shooter was confronted by a school-based police officer before entering. But a new timeline shows 2 police officers entered the school 4 minutes after the shooter. He then barricaded himself inside a 4th grade classroom. It then took an hour for police to shoot the gunman. By then, he had already killed 19 children and 2 teachers. And now we have these pictures of the victims, and I'd like you to just take a bit of time to consider these images, just children, 10 years old, and their teachers just doing their jobs. We've been and will continue to focus on the victims, like 11-year-old Layla Salazar. In their grief, Layla's family has talked to CNN's Gary Tuchman about what her favourite things to do were and the places that she loved.
Let's go, Layla!
The girl wearing the gray shirt is 11-year-old 4th grader Layla Salazar, about to win this race at last month's Robb Elementary School Field Day. Her family was there, but today they mourn. Her parents, 2 brothers, and grandparents have lost their little girl.
She loved to run. Her favorite thing was, TikTok, doing little TikTok dances and...
She loved everything.
I can't.
She loved it.
To draw. She liked to dance.
She was just a tomboy / girl. I mean, if anything, she knew how to climb a tree. She'd probably climb a tree and jump off of it.
She loved the river. We used to go to the river.
She was just an active person.
She just loved to swim.
Your husband was telling me, you were telling me that she loved Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine, which I love too.
Yes.
But you played that for her.
Yeah, we played that every time in the morning we took her to school. We sung it together.
And what an appropriate song.
Yeah.
Because she was a sweet child.
It just hurts now.
Earlier this month on Mother's Day, Layla took to TikTok.
Hey guys, today is Mother's Day, okay? And if you haven't said Happy Mother's Day to your mom, what are you doing? Go say it right now. And I just want to wish all the moms out there Happy Mother's Day, even though you're not my mom. And I also wanted to say I hope all the moms out there have an awesome and blessed day.
This was my only princess. She was my everything. We went together everywhere. She was stuck on me like glue. She had her own bedroom. She always laid with me. She always It's just, we did everything together, everything. We had so much plans for her.
Took her to the park. She liked to feed the ducks.
Yeah, we used to go feeding the dogs a lot.
She was so excited about her last few days of school.
Everyone in this family doted on Layla, particularly her grandparents.
She's our world.
She was our world.
There's no replacing that. Even though we can't speak up, our hearts are shattered.
There was a sense of disbelief among these family members that this happened. How could Layla no longer be here? How can they cope with never seeing her again?
The most thing that's the hardest is that I'm her father and I wasn't there. I wasn't there to protect her.
For now, this family leans on each other for support.
And I hope you know that so many of us, not just us who are here with you right now in your yard, but around this country and around the world are thinking of you. Does that give you strength?
It helps. It helps to know that so many people care.
A makeshift memorial has now been set up in downtown Uvalde. Uvalde is a very small city, only about 16,000 people. The surrounding county has 26,000 people. But so many people are coming here to pay their respects, partly because lots of the people who are showing up are from other parts of Texas and from out of state. 21 crosses for each of the victims, with their names on top, and with hearts on the crosses where people are writing things. This is the little girl we just did the story on, Layla Salazar. Flowers, stuffed animals, and poignant messages like this one. I will always love you, rest in peace, my beautiful granddaughter. And here from a classmate, you are so pretty. One of the visitors who came here a short time ago, unannounced, Meghan Markle, the wife of Prince Harry. She brought with her a bouquet of flowers, also went around the city, but made a stop at this memorial. This is all so tragically sad. What makes you feel somewhat reassured are all the kind people in the city and all the kind people who have shown up at this memorial. This is Gary Tuckman, CNN in Uvalde, Texas.
South Korea's new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, sits down with CNN in an exclusive interview, fresh from an international summit with US President Biden. See what this former prosecutor has to say about the threat of North Korea.
What would your message to Kim Jong-un be?
Plus, his thoughts on the new American-led economic pact to counter a rising China.
Are you anticipating a new kind of relationship with China?
Talk Asia, Saturday on CNN.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. My name is Raza Jaffer, and I'm the founder of Global Sustainability Network and currently based in Dubai. GSN was founded in 2015 with myself, Bishop Sanchez from the Vatican, and Lord Bishop Alistair Redfern from Church of England. GSN was founded to help support heroes who are working around the world to fight modern-day slavery. And we've got a huge task ahead of us as a commitment signed by 193 countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So our purpose is actually to support organizations who are our heroes in ending modern-day slavery.
Well, closing arguments have started in Johnny Depp's $50 million defamation case against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. The jury has heard more than 100 hours of testimony over what has been 6 weeks now, and they, at this point, have to decide if Heard caused Depp to lose work when she presented herself as a survivor of domestic abuse in a 2018 opinion piece in The Washington Post. Meanwhile, Heard is countersuing Depp for $100 million. She was the final witness to testify on Thursday.
I am harassed, humiliated, threatened every single day. Even just walking into this courtroom, sitting here in front of the world, having the worst parts of my life things I've lived through used to humiliate me.
It's entertainment reporter Chloe Melas joining me now from New York. It does seem a long time going, and it's been somewhat of a crazy ride, I have to say. But we are in the final stretch here. What can we expect from court today, and how long can the jury deliberate? Is it clear?
That is not clear. And listen, you know, the jury, like you said, 100 hours of testimony to sift through. It's a he said, she said situation. And remember, this is a defamation suit where Johnny Depp says that he's not been able to get any meaningful, lucrative work and that he was not able to be in Pirates of the Caribbean and lost